Guadalcanal. Rings around Rabaul. The Japanese dominate the Pacific, and their Supreme War Council continues to execute sweeping plans to bring 700 million Asiatics under imperial control. Proud and confident after her shattering naval victories at the outbreak of war, Japan spills over her legitimate boundaries, pouring supplies and manpower into overseas bases to protect her new empire and defy the Allies. All Japan is dedicated to Kodoha, the way of the emperor, Hirohito, son of heaven. In the fore of all conquest, on the bow of all her ships, the imperial crest, a chrysanthemum with 16 leaves. Magnificent fleet, which for months after Pearl Harbor wields undisputed rule over the greatest of oceans. This is the Navy which has ranged in triumph over the wide Pacific spaces. This is the Navy which has never known defeat. This is the Navy dedicated to a creed fanatic. With tenacious and tireless spirit, we strive to reach superhuman skill and perfect fighting efficiency. Now its mission is to build a mighty base in the Bismarck Archipelago, Rabaul, on the island of New Britain. And from this base, soldiers, sailors, and airmen of Imperial Japan can attempt to break the fragile hold of Americans and Australians, southeast on Guadalcanal, southwest on New Guinea. The harbor of Rabaul, base, arsenal, fortress, from which Japan seeks to control the South Pacific and clench her hold on the Solomon Islands and New Guinea. Garrisoned with 80,000 troops, Rabaul is a springboard for conquest, a bulwark for defense. 5 new airfields are prepared to support the Imperial Japanese Navy. Rabaul, immovable, secure, impregnable aircraft carrier that blocks the American climb up the ladder of the Solomon Islands. Carefree pilots, day after day, carry out their simple mission. Destroy all ships, supplies, and men who have the audacity to challenge an imperial mandate. Rabaul's air and naval power sweeps out to dominate surrounding islands and waters. To eliminate Rabaul, the Japanese and the Allies know a foothold must be won and held on the islands that ring it, and bases established from which it can be reduced blow by blow until the knockout. But first, the Allies must forge rings around Rabaul. Rendova, another rung up the ladder of the Solomon Islands toward Rabaul. But Rendova is only a stepping stone across a narrow arm of water to Munda and its priceless airstrip. Munda was murder. Planned as a quick stroke of Allied strategy, it took 5 bitter weeks to capture. But it takes only 5 days for the United States Navy's fabulous construction battalions, the Seabees, to transform ruined Munda runways into an operational airfield. First plane, Munda's first tooth, hacked out of the New Georgia rainforest where wild orchids flourish and cockatoos screech, where man struggles to exist and insects thrive. Another Allied airfield comes to life, and another bead is drawn on the target, Rabaul. triumph of Munda is the Allied way of observing the first anniversary of the landing on Guadalcanal. 200 miles south, Guadalcanal itself has burgeoned into a major base, justifying the agony, the blood of the Marines who won it. But there is a long way to go, and in the summer of 1943, a new name dominates intelligence sessions on Guadalcanal. The name? Bougainville, biggest of the Solomon Islands, essential link in the ring being forged around Rabaul. Volcanic prize, ripe for ripping from the Japanese vine. Week after week, from Guadalcanal's hard-won Henderson Field, Army, Navy, Marine, and New Zealand pilots take off to soften up Bougainville in preparation for another assault by the United States Marines. The invasion date is set. The landing beach is chosen. The command selected. Admiral Wilkinson and the 3rd Amphibious Force. Bougainville must be taken to provide a forward base from which fighter planes can escort the heavy bombers to Rabaul. The whole complex movement of men, ships, supplies has only one purpose: to advance and support war's newest weapon, the airplane. But before planes fly from Bougainville, the way must first be cleared by war's oldest ingredient, the foot soldier. The 3rd Marines take on the job. There are many D-days in the Pacific, many an H-hour. And yet with each comes a new sense of foreboding, of emptiness, of fear. As the opening salvos sound the notes of war's eternal theme, death. Across Empress Augusta Bay, toward the beaches of Cape Torquina, the Marines go in to meet the dank challenge of Bougainville. It is November 1st, 1943. Before the invaders lie the wildest jungle, the deepest swamps they have yet encountered in the South Pacific. And hidden in the tangle of jungle and swamp, the enemy. Marines have won, the Seabees take over. Hard on the heels of the riflemen come the engineers. What was a battlefield yesterday will be an airfield tomorrow. black cats come out at night. The lumbering Catalinas which scour the seas in search of enemy ships. The eyes of the cat see through the dark, where the Imperial Japanese Navy has scheduled 4 last runs of the Tokyo Express down the slot of water separating the Solomon Islands. And these last runs have famous names. The Battle of Kula Gulf, the Battle of Kolombangara, the Battle of Empress Augusta Bay, the Battle of Cape St. George. The call of the black cat is the call to battle. Inside the groping ships, in combat intelligence centers, the intricate apparatus of search and detection picks up the scent. Out somewhere in the ominous dark are ships with names like Amagiri and Dozuki, which must be found, destroyed. Inside ships with names like Honolulu and Mount Pelier, American sailors prepare to thwart the last stand of the Imperial Japanese Navy in the South Pacific. Invisible to one another, opposing warships close on a darkling sea, swept with confused alarms of struggle and flight, where ignorant navies clash by night. Bougainville, with its new Piva and Torquemada airstrips. Only 210 miles from Rabaul. The ring is closing. The Marines have gone, and the defense perimeter around the thriving airfields is guarded by the 14th Army Corps. Who cares what has happened to the 40,000 isolated Japanese elsewhere on the island? And off-duty life is not too bad. Just relax and take it easy. The greatest concentration of Japanese artillery in the South Pacific has been secretly brought up along hidden jungle trails. With sudden, furious assault on the American perimeter outpost, Hill 700, the enemy reopens the Battle of Bougainville. 4 full months after the initial landings, back into the jungle that is everybody's enemy, back into the devil's furnace, goes the American infantry. Days of savage, bloody struggle lie ahead, until the 37th Division breaks the enemy, this time for good. With final victory on Bougainville, other bases, other rings are forged around and around Rabaul. Up the New Guinea coast go the Allies. Into Cape Gloucester on New Britain go the Marines. Into the Admiralties goes the United States Army. Onto the islands of Green and Emerald go more Marines and veterans of Bella La Bella, soldiers of New Zealand. And the Navy that cruises unmolested through these waters is the United States Navy. Thousands of Japanese have been bypassed, left to wither on the vine. Rabaul is being strangled by runways branded on the encircling jungle islands. Rabaul and its harbor will be smashed, pulverized, neutralized. From around the ring they come, liberators from Guadalcanal, warhawks from Munda, corsairs from Emerald, Mitchells from New Guinea, avengers from Bougainville. The Holocaust of Allied reprisal spells doom for Rabaul across the skies of the South Pacific. Nostrum.
That held the dagger has struck it into the back of its neighbor.
Mussolini, founder of fascism, self-appointed high priest of war, draws the saber he has long been rattling on the sidelines. With France defeated and England tottering, he commits the Italian Empire to support his personal pact of steel with Hitler. It is October 28, 1940. Covetous of personal glory, jealous of his military prestige, Mussolini launches his legions into Greece on a campaign of conquest whose outcome seems certain. But the Italian armies ordered to Athens are ill-equipped, poorly trained. These men go into battle unaware their own commanders believe that for them, war is suicide. Evzon troops, outnumbered but not unprepared, meet the Italians with high-hearted resistance and smash the reluctant invaders back across the border. The legend of fascist military might, the myth of Mussolini's vaunted 8 million bayonets, breaks to pieces against the rugged, hostile hills of Albania. Has guaranteed Greek independence. King George VI and Churchill assure the Greeks, your cause is our cause. We will fight a common foe and we will share a united victory. And then across the Mediterranean, the hard-pressed British rush troops and supplies to the embattled Greeks, sailing fearlessly under the bays of Axis bombers. Into the harbors of Greece, under Admiral Cunningham, Commander-in-Chief, Mediterranean, the overtaxed Royal Navy brings in 50,000 British and New Zealand troops, hastily diverted from North Africa, where the Axis has already lighted the fires of war. But the long-standing alliance between Greece and England is being honored, no matter what the risk. Here democracy was born. Here blossomed the first flowers of Western civilization. And here, once more, man must fight for his freedom. Intervention swiftly brings retaliation. Down from the north surge German hordes in overpowering strength. Down they come to the rescue of their bungling Italian allies. Down through the Balkan valleys, the German Wehrmacht storms into Greece in blitz tempo, crushing everything which stands in its way. Once again, the ragged parade of the defeated, the ordeal of the helpless. Interrogation of prisoners reveals to the Germans the scope of the Allied disaster. More than 11,000 casualties. And once again, the struggle of survivors to escape by sea. Greece becomes another Dunkirk. But in defeat, there is no despair. The Grand Alliance is in the making. If the East looks dark, in the West, Roosevelt and the Americans extend to the English sympathy, understanding, help, and hope. And not by eastern windows only, when daylight comes in the light. In front, the sun climbs slow. How slowly. But westward, look. The land is bright. But for a time yet, the Germans will continue to plot and push and plunder. With Greece secure, the Axis seeks full control of the Mediterranean, North Africa, and the all-important Suez Canal. Through unnumbered centuries, Carthage, destroyed by Rome, has silently observed other legions, other men struggle for domination of North Africa. Now, once again, the course of Western society is being determined by what transpires on these dreary wastes, these trackless sands. For the Italians, North Africa has meant defeat, disaster. They have vainly challenged the outnumbered British. So the Germans send in their troops to salvage this vital campaign. They mount a major offensive to drive into Egypt, to drive to Suez. Temperature, over 100. Miles to go, more than 1,250, mostly across the Libyan desert. But the Germans are trained and equipped, hardened and armored for the long, hazardous haul to the east. For 18 months, the tide of battle flows back and forth across the rim of North Africa. Now, under Field Marshal Rommel, Axis armies surge forward, surge east. For the Germans, Rommel is their hero in the sun, their desert fox. For the Allies, Rommel is the most cunning adversary, most formidable tactician. On desert sands, Rommel and his troops reenact the victories already won in Poland, in France. Summer, 1942. Blitzkrieg in the desert. The invincible Africa Corps plunges into Egypt in victorious pursuit of the retreating British. In one 17-day spurt, Rommel's jabbing, stabbing armor comes 350 miles closer to Alexandria, closer to Suez. And while the panzers advance, other Allied fronts are also cracking. The Russians fall back. And with the United States now in the war, Axis submarines are pillaging Anglo-American lifelines in the Atlantic. The advance of the Africa Corps is strewn with monuments to Allied defeat. Even Tobruk, most stubborn of desert bastions, falls before the Axis. Tobruk, gone with all its equipment, all its precious supplies. And with it go 30,000 Allied prisoners of war. El Alamein, only 60 miles from the port of Alexandria, Rommel pauses to reorganize, entrench, and await supplies for his final push. Today we hold the gateway to Suez, he tells the world. We have every intention of getting there. We have not come this far with any idea of being flung back. Meanwhile, Hitler's other armies, having overrun all Europe, swamp Russia, and bend south through the Caucasus toward the Middle East, toward Suez. German conquest of Suez in the Middle East would mean loss of oil, and might well mean loss of World War II for the Allies. The Germans consider subjugation of the Eastern Mediterranean more deadly to the British Commonwealth of Nations than the capture of London itself. Suez is on the spot. The Italian general, Garibaldi, is in nominal command of North Africa. But it is the German general, Rommel, who has won the victories. And it is the German Hitler who dominates Axis strategy in the Mediterranean, which Italians call Mare Nostrum, our sea. On control of this sea depends whether the supplies get through to enable Rommel to reach Suez, whether the English can cut the Axis off and save Suez. The Italian fleet has been reluctant to challenge the Royal Navy. Hitler now demands that Mussolini's navy liquidate His Majesty's navy and clean up the Mediterranean once and for all. The Italian fleet is a question mark. Its morale, low. Its leadership, uncertain. It has no aircraft carriers, no radar. Protection has been sacrificed for speed, and the sailors themselves call it the cardboard fleet. But the Italian Navy is swift and skilled in maneuver, excellent in gunnery, communications, and torpedo tactics. British Navy, the strain of its mission in the Mediterranean intensifies with every passing week. The 1,800-mile waterway it guards from Gibraltar to Suez is sown with hardship, death, and impending disaster. Not only must the harassed warships support the Allied forces in North Africa, but they must also stop the flow of supplies to Rommel's encroaching panzer divisions. The ordeal is great. The stakes are high. The Royal Navy lights up all boilers to meet the challenge of the Italian fleet. Off Sardinia and Pantelleria, at the Battle of Matapan, the British clash with the Italians in battles on whose outcome rests the fate of the Mediterranean. Royal Navy has done its job, cutting access communications to North Africa, while 99% of Allied supplies which leave England reach the Middle East safely. The free world pours its military might into ancient Alexandria, turning the balance in favor of the Desert Army. Of materiel and men, delivered by British and American merchant ships, guarded by British and American warships, accumulate to fight the Allied cause, while Rommel's supplies are reduced to a trickle. Rommel admits, these circumstances force the Panzer Army to suspend the offensive. The army will therefore fall back slowly under enemy pressure, and the Allies lose no time in applying the pressure. 23rd of October, 1942. The British 8th Army under General Montgomery unleashes its all-or-nothing offensive at El Alamein. In 10 days of furious fighting, the British break the German front, and Rommel's Africa Corps turns in headlong retreat back across the desert. And Suez, the Intercontinental Canal, the jugular vein through which Allied lifeblood flows. Suez stands untouched and unmolested. The British and American ships come through, the ships that saved the Mediterranean.